Hey all, Daniel here. We have a great new way for you to reach out to us here at We Watch TV. If you take a look down in the show notes of the podcast, you'll notice a link that says text us a question or comment. The link will open the messaging app on your phone, and from there you can send a text message to us, your favorite variety TV podcast hosts. So if we say something you like or don't like about your favorite show, click that link and educate us on your opinion. We love hearing them, even if they're wrong, and we will make sure to shout you out on our next episode or answer your burning questions. So make sure and check that out down in the show notes. And now, enjoy the episode. All right, we're about ready to go. Oh, get out of here, Nat. Hey, everybody. Welcome to We Watch TV, the podcast about the TV that we watch. I am Daniel. She is Hope. This is episode 72. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Was there really a gnat there?
Yeah. It's just up in me all the time, and I can't stand it. We've had a gnat infection.
Infection.
Yeah, I guess
Infestation.
so. Infestation up here recently. It's been very bad. So
Do y'all know, like, Pigpen from the Peanuts comics? We're not sloppy people, but I feel not like that.
Not like that, no.
I feel like they're, like, always around us.
Like when you're trying to eat something, they just get like a millimeter in
They
front of
really
your eye
like
and just
Bob
hover
Evans
there.
strawberry pie.
Yeah, they love that. They love that. But I think the vinegar is working. I think we're getting it under control. So, anyways, hey everybody, hey, we're back. It's been a week.
Just, woo!
So if you are followers of us on Instagram, we made a couple posts to let everybody know why we took off last Tuesday. Our third co-host, Marvin, had a bit of an incident, and we had to rush him to the ER vet.
Which is an hour away.
He is perfectly fine. In fact, I would say he has recovered better than anybody in the home.
Yes.
So it just, but that and just, we still haven't gotten
Stress.
ourselves dug out from vacation, and it's been ungodly hot.
And the gnats.
And just this pile of crap led us to not podcasting last week. And yeah, I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
Well, like I said, the emergency vet is an hour away.
Yeah.
He hates car rides, but it was a very traumatic car ride. Not only did, of course, an old car, as old as Methuselah, cut us off, putted down through town. So we're in a stressful situation. Our poor baby is in the back seat crying, holding his paw up.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Looking about as pathetic. So we're just walk you back into what happened. He suddenly started limping out of nowhere. I even said, do you want to get like a treat? And he just three-legged, sadly limped into the kitchen and was crying. And this is a Sunday. So, of course, this crap always happens, you know, when regular vets are closed. I
Right.
feel like that it was like a Sunday evening. And he's never done that before. We thought, well, maybe he got stung by a bee or something.
That was what I thought.
Yeah, he wouldn't let us look at it without growling at us. He was holding it all pathetic. It was the saddest. Was it not one of the saddest things you've ever seen?
It was absolutely pathetic how he was acting.
It was like somebody stabbed you in a heart, though,
Which
right?
makes it even more infuriating later in the story.
But wasn't it like...
It was, yes.
Seeing him... When he held his little paw up to you, like, what did that
Oh,
feel?
it was pathetic. Yeah, it killed you.
It
And
just
then
made you
we get
feel
him
like
in
you
this
were
car
stabbed in the
seat in the
soul.
car, and he's just sitting back there with his foot up like this. Sometimes he laid down, but the rest of the time he just stood there and just
Like, pathetic.
hung his leg
so
up.
sad.
Like it just seemed like it hurt so bad.
And it probably did for a little bit for him. So we have that hour drive. He's looking so upset. We get to the vet. I get him checked in. And then I said, you know, he can be a little reactive. Is it okay if he waits in the car? Because the emergency vet is just like a human emergency room. It's a very stressed out, tense situation. It's very sad. I don't ever want to have to be inside one again.
No.
It's very depressing. So they're like, yeah, that's fine. So then I go back in or something, or they call us in.
They called
right?
us. Yeah.
And you did get him out gently that time, correct? Or was that?
When we arrived, I got him out of the car to see if he needed to use the bathroom.
Yes.
No sign of the limp at that point.
He
like he was doing his like rushing around, like
Yes.
let's finish this business and get out of here.
let's go home.
The
He's like, "This
second
isn't
time when
Grandma's
they
house."
called us to take him actually in to see the vet, I open the door, reach in to start pulling him out of the car, and he
He has a
jumps
little car seat, y'all.
out of the car onto the hot concrete and
Unfazed.
just starts running to the door of the ER vet.
So anyway, the first
No
time,
limp in sight.
the first time when we bring him in, we're trying to explain to like the tech, or the nurse or something, like what was going on, and showing where the limp was, and what did he do?
She looks at me, the tech looks at me and said, now what foot was it again? And I start to hold up one hand, and I look down at him, and he's kind of limping on that arm, mirroring me, and then all of a sudden I see him drop that foot right to the ground as if there's nothing wrong, and slightly pick up the other one, and he switched it.
And then he switched it again.
I felt like the dumbest man on the planet.
You know that like TikTok thing that please,
Yeah. Like
embarrass me.
And I didn't know if anybody else in the room saw it. I thought I was going insane. I was so happy when you finally told me you saw him do that.
I was like,
too.
wait a minute, no, it was this one. Well, then we had to go back out to the car. So I stayed in there then and waited for them, like you said, for the vet. And that's when he jumped out on the hot asphalt. We went in to actually talk to the vet. But it turned out that I don't even know what kind of condition there. It was good we brought him.
Yes.
What we think happened was we think something kind of got stuck in his paw and that he eventually worked it out somewhere in the car ride from the depths of hell. And he was able to work that out. And that's why he was like, okay, what are we doing here? But it did turn out that it was good that we brought him because he got the reason why he probably got something stuck up in there was that he has something wrong. They said 3 of his paws actually had it. So we think that front one, which was originally, I believe, his right paw before he switched up on us, was the one that got probably something stuck in it that he worked out. And it's like some type of cracks that can get in dogs' feet. It can happen just randomly. They assured us it's not really anything we did so much.
I think they called it like sled dog foot, and you like moisture, too much moisture sticking around there.
He's not a sled dog.
He is not.
He's a schnauzer. Do you think they call it that because sled dogs probably are in the snow and the moisture?
Sure, absolutely, yeah. But he certainly drags me around the yard sometimes like he's a sled dog.
So what exactly happens with it?
It's what I read about it. It's almost like it's almost like chafing or it's cracking the skin of his paw pads. The moisture is like doing that, and so something got in one of those little micro cuts on his paw pads because he's never like prior to this and then after. He hasn't seemed phased whatsoever.
He was trying to post up with you that night after he had been limping. So we know about that now, and he got some antibiotics in case there could have been an infection. They wanted to rule that out. And then he has this fun little sanitizing stuff that's supposed to kind of just make sure if there's debris in there and kind of heal up. Do you think they felt better when I touched one of his paws the other night. Do you think it felt better or?
I haven't really noticed, but he definitely is. It's not that he's non-compliant when we're putting the foot stuff on him, but he's just like weirded out as to what we're doing. Why are we standing outside? We have to go outside because it's like an iodine wash, so you really don't want that anywhere near your furniture. And you just kind of got to pat his feet with it. And it's like, it's not that he doesn't like it. It's that he just seems really confused. Why are we doing this?
Yeah, we totally expected and I'm definitely glad it wasn't a stinger that they had to yank out of there. So yeah, that was it wasn't like a wasted trip or anything like that because we found out what was going on. And probably if he hadn't had those little cracks, whatever had gotten up in there, probably wouldn't have made it like him limp like that. So, and they shaved his feet.
They shaved his feet for us. Amazing. Because we're terrible at that.
Like he does not like his feet to be touched. They were able to get it shaved down. It's probably the best they've ever looked. He's looking at us right now like, excuse me. So, he is doing, would you say he's doing well?
Absolutely, yes.
Right now he's kind of pouting and a little annoyed with us.
It's close to his dinner time, so.
Our third co-host, Marvin, is on the mend, but then we had to drive back the hour. We went through Sonic to get some limeades because we were so thirsty, but there were youths.
Every child in town seemed to be at the Sonic.
That had the audacity to be standing outside of the Sonic, much to Marvin's chagrin.
He was unhappy with them.
And then the hour drive home felt longer than our 14-hour drive did.
Oh, for vacation. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what it was. I drive that drive on a pretty regular basis because this is the place that we go to if we want more than like a regular fast food. We
can't go to Target out there right now because it fell off.
Yeah, the Target down there fell off the side of the mountain, but
look it up.
West Virginia life.
Look up West Virginia Target. like falls, like
slips off hill.
Slips off hill or
you'll
something.
get there. So I'm used to that drive, and it just the way it just seemed like it took forever
and
to
on
get
top
home.
of that, I had a hurt shoulder and a hurt neck that I had done something to. No idea. I'm still recovering from that. And it was just it's been a week.
Yeah, you were doing the Batman turn. Every time you needed to look at something, instead of looking with your neck, you had to turn your entire body to look.
And then we have the gnats situation.
I think we have that under control.
It's been super hot. This is why we like the fall.
It is. I can't wait for the fall.
Okay, and happier news though. Our 1 week in June that was good was our vacation, which we did talk a little bit about on the last episode. And yeah, we talked a little bit about what we did. It was a pretty good week, right?
Yeah, it's much more restful than the last 2 weeks have been.
I feel like we talked until I started feeling kind of crappy towards the end of vacation. It was one of those vacations where everything went perfectly.
It was a very smooth one, yes.
Things line up well. We discovered a new place to eat in Animal Kingdom that I've heard people talk about forever, and that is the Nomad Lounge. The churros are the best. I even consider those better than the Disneyland churros, and that's throwing down the gauntlet.
They were pretty good.
They're the best churros I've ever had, and I normally don't like when like the churros in the parks try to give me like that cup of crappy sauce. These dipping sauces, specifically the vanilla one, elite. I think it ended up, even though it's just a lounge, being our most expensive
It was,
meal.
yes. It was our most expensive
Because we were like, another round of churros, please.
Do you think you would have liked it as much if they had given us one of those awful outside tables?
No. And I would have waited to eat inside, or I would have just left.
Because we were, at that moment in time, we needed air conditioner. And I realized on this trip that Animal Kingdom maybe has the least amount of air conditioned places you can go to get away.
And it's always the hottest park, no matter what, because of all like the plants and everything in there. I read somewhere that it is scientifically proven that it's always going to feel a little bit more humid in there because of all the plants.
Yeah.
That's what I read, at least in the Disney lore.
It certainly feels that way. I don't know. There have been some times at Epcot where the wind isn't moving.
If you're on Epcot on a hot day and you're on World Showcase and the sun is beating down on you, like that time years ago when we had your mom with us in July and we rode the boat from Hollywood Studios over to Epcot, and it was just like a floating like grill.
Yeah.
Grilling our bodies, and then we stood in line for Maelstrom. Remember Maelstrom?
I do. R.I.P.
But yeah, it was a good trip. We had a really good breakfast at Crystal Palace. We have eaten there for lunch and dinner before, and I've never been impressed. I tend to not do buffets. This was my first buffet post-pandemic because buffets tend to give me the ick. However, I decided to make an exception because I heard about these churro Mickey waffles, and I was like, you know what? I want to try them. It's towards the end of the trip. I love Pooh and like Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, Piglet, Eeyore. Get to eat breakfast with all of them. It had been a while since we had done that. That was going to be our pool day, so we're like, let's do a really nice breakfast, like one ride, leave Magic Kingdom, go sit by the pool all day, like just beach ourselves by the pool after putting all this breakfast food into our bodies. And if you're going to do a buffet, I think a breakfast buffet at Disney, I would say do that over like the lunch dinner. I feel like even with like the meat carving stations, the lunch dinner food just tastes so like shoveled out, sat around, not good. Whereas the breakfast food tasted actually fresh and decent.
The only thing I would knock this buffet for was no carving station. If they would have just had a piece of roast beef, breakfast roast beef. Come on. You can eat roast beef for breakfast. But yes, I agree with you in general. They had
plenty of meat options, though.
They did. Yeah, I agree. I agree in general. A breakfast buffet, it was nice. I liked all the options.
Like way better. You've eaten there before. This was so much better.
This is better than the other times. Yes.
Lunch and dinner, and the churro Mickey waffles, achievement unlocked. An absolute new Disney favorite. They might be the best food I've ever put into my mouth at Disney. I know you liked them, but you weren't obsessed with them like
Correct.
me. You did like them, though.
Yeah.
But Daniel's more of like, let me get some bacon. Let me get some cheesy potatoes. Let me get some eggs. Let me get all these meats. And I'm like, ooh, a churro waffle, a pancake, another waffle. Thank you. Give me more. I even got some yogurts. That's not something I would normally get. That's one of the. It was giving almost conference breakfast where I can just go around and pick what I want.
Yeah.
And then I went full. We both went full blown beverage goblin. Water, coffee. Must have had 4 cups of coffee because they just keep coming around filling it up.
What did I have? I had the sangria.
You had the sangria. I had a mimosa, which was a little too sugary. I kind of wish I would have gotten the sangria.
Yeah, it was too sugary for me
well.
too. It was. I tried it after you were done with it, and it was that was not a good mimosa.
But it was a very good breakfast, and it was probably honestly one of my favorite meals of the trip. I know your favorite's always going to be the steak.
That's
at
correct.
Le Cellier, but it was so good. And then it got me thinking, and this is relevant to this podcast. And we started talking about it. So, Christopher Robin, do Pooh, Tigger, Piglets, Eeyore, did they really exist in the 100 Acre Wood, or are they all figments of different parts of Christopher Robin's personality?
I mean, they are the stuffed animals in his room,
And he has given them different
and he's
personalities.
given them personalities.
What about Rabbit and Kanga then? I know they don't meet at Crystal Palace, but what about them?
Yeah, they're all part of his
it?
imagination.
See, I always thought they were just like real and they came to life, and the 100 Acre Wood was a real place.
I don't know if the 100 Acre Wood is or is not a real place
just-
that kid would have run around in, but the stuffed
I
animals
just thought
running around
parents
it,
cared less about their
the
kids. back then.
sentient stuffed animals running around this forest are certainly figments of his imagination.
So it's basically like he assigns almost each of them probably different aspects of his own personality, if that is the case. So
Yes.
Rabbit, like OCD, a little bit of anxiety. Piglet, definite anxiety. Eeyore, depression. Tigger, hyperactivity, wanting to find his place in the world, to fit in. Pooh, hunger, I guess, just being lovable, joyful. So is Winnie the Pooh the OG Inside Out?
Yeah, I think so.
We had like a long conversation about this when we were walking out. Just absolutely, I was absolutely stuffed walking out of that breakfast.
Yeah, me too.
We did one ride, a lap around the People Mover, and we were just our bellies were just filled to the gills with waffles, pancakes, in your case, lots of breakfast meats.
Lots
Daniel
of bacon.
really likes breakfast
Lots
meats.
of sausage.
And
lots
we had
of
a
eggs,
very
lots of potatoes.
We had a very in-depth conversation about it, and I'm like, because Inside Out, basically each emotion is in Riley's head.
Yeah.
So they're not presenting as stuffed animals coming to life in the 100 Acre Wood like Winnie the Pooh, but a very similar concept.
Yes, I agree.
And if Christopher Robin is in fact imagining and the stuffed animals are not coming to life magically, and he is projecting his own emotions into each of them, it is very similar.
Yeah, I did see one TikTok, and it came up after we'd had this conversation. So again, our phones are
always
spying on us. That postulated maybe Christopher Robin's just schizophrenic, but
That's very dark. That's where we go from talking about happy churro waffles. Who's your favorite of all the Winnie the Pooh?
probably Pooh. I just think Pooh's really great.
And then
Oh, bother.
red flag for Hope. Who's Hope's favorite?
Oh, yeah, Eeyore.
Eeyore. Even though I feel like it really does depend on my mood, but I do think I often match Tigger's energy. We took a really cute picture where you and Eeyore stood together, and then me and Tigger stood together about like same energy. And we thought that was funny, but I've always loved Eeyore. The first present, you guys, that Daniel ever bought me, do you even remember this?
Yeah,
was
I know what
a
it is.
stuffed corduroy Eeyore from the Disney store. Remember those?
Yeah.
From the Charleston Town Center Mall, which is almost basically a shell of itself in today. And that's the first present you ever bought me. But I always loved Eeyore. I like Pooh Bear too. Oh, bother. But Eeyore, and I really like Tigger. Maybe I'm like Christopher Robin. I just have all my, like, which personality are you going to get today? Are you going to get Rabbit, or Hope's like, I want to clean
myself that
everything in
every
the
morning.
house and do a 12-hour cleaning spree? Are you going to get the Piglet anxieties over there? Are you going to get my hyperactivity of Tigger? Am I going to be moody and depressed like Eeyore? Am I just going to want to sit on the couch and eat like Pooh? Which you never know. And you know what, Daniel? You can go back and forth betwixt the characters as well. Just like everybody can with the emotions from Inside Out.
And we went and saw Inside Out 2
Yes, the sequel.
yesterday.
We saw it, well, at the time of the recording, it would have been
At the
on
time of the recording yesterday.
Friday evening.
Friday evening.
We thought that going to a 10 p.m. show, that we're like probably
No
not
one
many
should be
people
here.
will be there. Like, yes, it's a kids movie, and we know that these Disney Pixar movies, particularly this one, resonate with a lot of adults. So I know a lot of adults were excited to see it. Apparently, everybody had the same idea as us. We can go to a Marvel movie, a major Marvel movie release day, like maybe like the day after at a 7 p.m. primetime showing, and I'd have less people in my theater. It wasn't packed, but there was quite a bit, mostly adults. But there were some kids in there late at 10 p.m.
And we were worried when we first
late.
got in because they were being rowdy, but they shut up when the movie started.
They did. I have to give them credit. They shut up, listened, cell phones off. It was a good experience. Even with all the people, it was a good experience because everybody was super into the movie, because I feel like I really do think everybody went to that 10 p.m. showing having the same thought that we did. We really want to see this movie, but we don't want to have a lot of people there. You can call that fear.
Yeah, it's
or
one of those,
anxiety, the new emotion.
It's one of those things. Every time we go to the movies, I forget how much I like going to the movies.
Same. I feel like we can sit and watch a TV show for hours, but for my focus, it is best for me to see a movie at the movie theater where I don't have my phone, the lights are out, I have some nice popcorn, and I can't just pause it, and I have to focus and pay attention.
Yeah, I agree. It was nice to go see a movie. I like this movie, Inside Out. I like the first one. I think I like the first one better than the second one.
Yes.
Which isn't an uncommon thing, but it's not like it wasn't like some huge drop. Like it's not like a big difference. Like this was a very good movie, and I think, like you said, they introduced some new emotions that probably hit home a little bit for people, especially as you get older.
Oh,
yeah. I thought it was good.
It was very good. I loved the first one, sobbed in the first one, sobbed in this one. It was definitely on my list of, movies that I have to see this year. This is only our second movie that we've seen in theaters this year, because it's kind of been a dry year for movies. It's going to get ramped up a little bit in July, but all we saw was Dune.
Yeah.
In theaters before we saw this one. The new emotions that they introduced, I thought were very fitting for the storyline, because Riley, who these are the emotions that are in her head. So we already knew joy, anger, fear, disgust, sadness. And what happens as you become a teenager, you have different issues wanting to fit in. Envy, your anxiety starts to peak up. You have that classic teenager like, oh, I don't really care.
Yeah, boredom. That was my favorite one.
Everything's fine. That was my favorite of the new emotions as well. So our new emotions, of course, were envy, anxiety, and then how do they say it? Like,
I don't know, something French, but she's boredom.
Yeah. Like whatever Joy Cotter is what I've been calling her. But that was my favorite one, because that emotion, like the scene where, because she's always like laying on the couch acting like she doesn't give a crap about anything, and then like when Riley returns from camp, her parents are like, how was it? And Riley starts running through everything that like kind of went wrong at camp and all the chaotic stuff, but then that emotion kicks in and she's like, yeah, it was good, or it was fine. Just the classic response that you give to people, especially when you're a teenager.
Did you say embarrassment, the big one?
Yeah. Oh, embarrassment. I forgot embarrassment. Sorry, embarrassment. But my favorite part with the new emotion was suddenly where she like loses her phone.
Yeah.
Not Riley, but that emotion, and she's like, "Where's my phone?" 'Cause that's classic, especially how like teenagers, I think, try to act so unbothered, but if they lose that phone. But I thought it was really good, especially the stuff with anxiety. I am somebody that does suffer horribly from anxiety, and I think they really depicted it well, how sometimes anxiety can overtake every other emotion that you want to experience. Even if you want to experience joy, it can impact your sense of self. And there's this part where the character Riley is almost having a bit of a panic attack, and I thought they really illustrated what that feels like.
Yeah, I agree.
To have a panic attack well. And a lot of kids, they do go through anxiety, especially at that age. And then if you're an adult watching it, you've been through it. If you have probably my friends that have teenagers, I'm sure they're experiencing what this is like as a parent. And I liked how, because in the first one, Inside Out, you got to see that the parents have their own set of emotions. Yeah. We got a sneak peek into that again. It was cute. It was good. I would recommend it. The one thing that I've noticed about this, though, it's been a while since we have seen a Disney Pixar movie in the theater experience. So I don't know if this was new for this one. Where was the short? You always get a Pixar short before the Pixar movies.
Yeah, I don't know.
Gone.
I'm trying to think when the last Pixar movie we saw in theaters even was. It's been a long time.
It has been a long... Was it Inside Out?
It might have been the first Inside Out.
No, it would have been Toy Story 4.
Yeah,
right?
You're right. Yeah.
I think, because we didn't see Coco in theaters. I think that was after Toy Story 4. I can't remember at this point the timelines of stuff, but Yeah, I'm pretty sure we got a short before Toy Story 4. But apparently people on Twitter were talking about it too. I wasn't the only one that noticed it. But I love the shorts. That's one of my favorite things about seeing a Pixar movie. So if you go into this thinking you're going to get that classic short that you always do before the Pixar movie, unfortunately you're not going to get it, but it's still a good movie. So
yeah, I'm sure they got cut for budget reasons or whatever. It just like that's just the MO of stuff. We can't have nice things anymore because they're fun. If they don't make any good money, you can't have it. So, but speaking of fun, good things, we do have some fan mail to go through before we get into the rest of our conversations here. I want to start, briefly. For those of you that have been listening, a couple episodes ago, we had a kind of a top 5 listing episode, and I thought that was really fun. We did get one comment from that episode from Charlotte, North Carolina. The comment was, 2 comments really. First, I love how Daniel finishes his list and Hope immediately argues with him about his own list. That takes place when we're recording and when we're not recording. And then
you argue with me too.
And then B part is maybe it's not that Daniel's being mean to Hope as much as Daniel's just better at the game. I appreciate that.
I would like to say that Daniel bamboozled me with the whole experience and went full-blown villain. When we practiced before, I think we practiced with movies. And I think I said this the last time. I'm like, oh, are you going to put like The Matrix on there? So I get stuck as my number 1 because I hate The Matrix. And yeah, that's right. I said what I said. It's bad. It's a bad movie. It's overhyped.
You're wrong.
Mid. Terrible. Whatever. And he's like, no, you don't want to intentionally trip people up. I was like, oh, okay. So I gave him good things that I knew he would like. He totally like bought into and I knew you would. I was like, I'm going to put Cosmic Rewind and Everest on the same list because I'm a nice person. And then this idiot just gives me like the bottom of the barrel crap, and then I'm like, oh, so are you going to
but the whole list was bottom of the barrel.
Are you going to give me
theme of the list.
I wouldn't call every ride you put on there bottom of the barrel crap. I still like Test Track. I think that was one of the things you gave me. But I
guess it was my bottom of the barrel then.
Yeah, I guess. It was, I thought and so then I'm like, are you going to give me Mission Space? So basically Daniel had me thinking like if I could have gone full bore the way I thought originally the game was going to be played, I would have destroyed you.
Well, we can always do another episode of it.
We will. And I won't be nice. I want to know right now, did you trick me on purpose?
No, I did not. I did nothing on purpose.
Then what was up with the switch up then?
I didn't switch anything up. I was just come up with a good list.
But then why did you tell me the night before that that's not the point? It's to trip people up when that is, in fact, the point of this.
I don't know. I guess I just...
And you just know, you totally... You're trying to play off the nice card when you were actually very villainous.
Hey, we have another comment here from my sister in Ohio. We watched the first episode of the new season of House of Dragon, and it was pretty good. The first season was a little slow at times, but I think they were setting up a lot of stuff for this season that will be pretty good.
Okay. Why is everybody... We asked this months ago for people to make a play for us to watch House of Dragons in time for season 2. Now that season 2 has started, we have this comment. Somebody else has reached out to me. Actually, 2 other people have reached out to just me, not through the fan mail, and been like, you guys really need to watch House of Dragons. We wanted to watch it if we were going to get caught up before season 2, and now y'all want to make a play for it. I like the theme song. I heard that they did get to see Winterfell in the last episode, which has me intrigued, but I could always watch the YouTube stuff.
I don't care about this anymore. I'm Game of Thrones out. Yeah.
With Matt Smith, I've seen a lot of YouTube videos with Matt Smith and his niece that he's hooking up with on there, and I'm like, okay, they do make a good couple, classic Game of Thrones, but no, everyone should have taken the call to action a long time ago.
Yeah. Final, we do have a blind rank 5 specifically for Hope. Nice Foul has submitted this list. I will give you the title of the list, and then we will begin. For those of you who didn't listen to our episode, the blind rank 5, essentially, I have a list in front of me that I'm going to go straight through. Hope has to rank them in her top 5, not knowing what's next on the list. So,
and the intention is to bamboozle somebody.
Yeah, favorite sports teams is the list that I have in front of me.
Okay, I know he's a Longhorns fan, if I somehow have the Texas Longhorns as my number one after this list, I'll just tell you right now, redact it. It doesn't count.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Now, I just want to make sure it's very clear. One, first, I did not share this list with her at all. She has no idea what's coming. Two, for Hope's benefit, it is possible to have there could be colleges on this list, and those colleges are broken up by sport. So it's not just West Virginia. It's West Virginia football versus West Virginia basketball versus West Virginia, some other sport. Is how it could play out.
Are men's and women's teams on there? Or is it all like
that is not distinguished against.
Okay.
All right. Are you ready?
Nice foul. If I end up having Texas in the one slot, this list is incorrect. So now I'm scared.
Pittsburgh Pirates.
Ooh. 2.
Okay.
God, man, I'm such a loser.
All right. So your number 2 is Pittsburgh Pirates. Yeah. West Virginia University basketball.
Didn't we almost have it all until Robert Huggins destroyed my soul? We're going to go with the 3 slot for West Virginia basketball because I still love them.
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
4.
The Pittsburgh Penguins.
Oh, my God. The Longhorns are going to be my number 1. I've got to put the Penguins in the 5 slot because I don't really care much about hockey.
So just to be clear, we've got the Pittsburgh Pirates at number 2.
She-Hope has been kidnapped.
The WVU basketball team at number 3.
Yeah.
The Steelers at number 4.
Yeah.
And the Penguins at number 5.
Yeah.
And the 5th option on this list,
God.
the University of Texas football.
No, I knew you were going to do this, and I still fell for it. I was like, where's WVU football? This list is crap. I knew this. I knew it. You know what? This is why I don't give people the benefit of the doubt. Because I always get screwed in the end. I knew it. But it would really be WVU football.
So I want to make
sure.
So that he left a note. He said, she may know I'll try and sneak in the Longhorns. So feel free to sub WVU football in if it works out better or worse for her.
So you both have betrayed me. The actual list would be WVU football, number 1. The Pittsburgh Pirates, number 2. WVU basketball, number 3. I would put the Steelers in the 4 slot, and then I just don't care too much about hockey, so I put them in the 5 slot, even though I do root for the Pens. I knew this was going to happen. I should have put the Pirates at number 1, but if I had done that, then you would have subbed in WVU football. This was doomed to fail. This is 2 against 1.
No, I'm going to say right now, I was never going to sub WVU football in because I believe whatever the 5 are should be 5. It's against the spirit of the list to have a last one sub in.
I knew it was my own daggone fault because I knew that he was going to do this. I knew that Texas Longhorns were going to end up being my number 1. They're my number 1, one of my number 1 favorite teams to beat. Horns Dan.
All right. Well, now that we've got you all revved up, we might as well jump into TV.
Okay.
And we can't talk about TV without talking about the major life-changing, earth-shattering events that took place at the end of May, which was, of course, part 2 of
that
Bridgerton.
Was in June. Part 2 came out in June
okay.
after vacation.
Well, part 2 of Bridgerton is out. You've watched it, twice now?
Like 3 times.
3 times all the way through. I'm going to just step
away
away
as good as part 1.
And just let you go.
Okay.
How was it?
Mm-hmm. There was the best of times and the worst of times. And I'm going to be a little bit honest, it was a little disappointing, especially coming off part 1. That was so good. And I was willing to forgive them for some stuff in part 1 because I was promised so much more in part 2. Basically, one of the reasons why I think season 1 is one of my least favorites, even though that's what got me into it, is because we hardly got anything other than Daphne and Simon, and they're like one of my least favorite Bridgerton couples. But and then like with Canthony in season 2, they had a little bit less screen time, and I was a little annoyed by that. I was like, whatever. They still had a decent amount. I wanted to get more Colin, Penelope, and at some points they almost felt like side characters in part 2, and that really irritated me. Now one could be like, oh, we've been introduced to Colin, Penelope, and you've seen more of their like relationship and friendship in the other 2 seasons, so I could see that argument being made, but I felt like we needed more and we didn't get as much. Now what we did get was good, honey.
So let me be clear. From the main character shipping of the episode of the second half, you're happy with what you got from them
I wanted
You
more.
just wanted more. But the
Yes.
things you did get with them, you were satisfied with.
Pretty much, yes. What irritated me was some of these side character stories that ended up not even meaning anything in the end. I'm like, what was the point of this? Like the Mondriches, I think that's how you say their name. I kind of complained about this in episode 1. Beautiful couple. I thought I was like, something's gonna come up. Why their storyline mattered in the second part. It didn't. I still don't. It's like the Matt Donovan of this show. If my Vampire Diaries people will know, just like useless. Like, what is the point of it? And I kept like waiting and waiting and waiting for it like to come together. I was like, well, surely there's a reason why they're getting so much screen time. Nothing really panned out. So we didn't get like of all the leads. I think somebody like did the math for each lead season. This has been like the least that we've gotten of the 2 leads. And that was kind of annoying. But what we did get was really good. We did get the mirror scene from the book. I was very excited. I mean, at least we're getting some stuff from the book that they've just decided to pitch off of a cliff, which we'll talk about that later. We got the mirror scene. It was very like intimate and like very well done. I almost felt like I was like intruding on like the actor's privacy. Like, because I felt like it just seemed very real. Like it was like, oh. So like, how like hot and like charged the carriage scene was. This was very like intimate and like just like down to the nothing. And it did play out beautifully. But it was much more of like a romantic type of thing, and it lasted a good bit of time. That was a good scene. I feel a little irritated by the way they handled some of the conflict, which I'll get to in a few minutes. But Colin and Penelope, their little friendship moment in the church where it's announced they're going to be married. And then they do like a little dance. That was cute. Their wedding scene was fantastic. Like, because he already knows the secret at the point about the wedding.
Right.
And they've already made out after that. Still kind of mad at her. But like he sees her walking down the aisle, can tell she's nervous because everyone's looking at her, and he gives her this nod, and then she smiles. And they played, how they do the instrumental music in Bridgerton.
Right.
We got Coldplay's Yellow, which is, I feel like we manifested this on Reddit like years ago before scripts were even done for this particular season. And that was just chef's kiss. Then at their wedding breakfast, which would be like what we think of as a wedding reception, they danced to Taylor Swift, You Belong With Me. That was a perfect, gorgeous scene. It was beautifully done because when they started dancing, they did that camera where like it looked like it was just the 2 of them.
Yeah.
Nobody else in the room. Gorgeous. And I wanted more of that. I wanted some more romantic scenes. I do have to give you some credit. When we were watching
Little Old Me,
I think it was episode 6, you were like, hey, that's the name of the book this season is based on, because they named episode 6 Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. And how you remembered that and knew that. Of all the stupid stuff that you forget, I'll send you out to Walmart. You forget 2 seconds later what you went there for, but you remembered that. So everybody give Daniel a round of applause.
I don't deserve it, but thank you.
It was really good. So the conflict, I would have liked that to have been solved a little bit more how it was in the book. Like, Colin definitely had a right to be angry with her, but they had him mad for too long to suit me. Like, a little bit, like, he would not get mad, like, you would seem like he's over it, because he'd be over it at the wedding, and then it would get brought up again, and he'd get, like, re-mad about the whole thing. I'm like, what are you doing?
Oh, I don't know anybody like that.
Be quiet. But it turns out, like, a lot of Colin's issues with it was more of a place of his own insecurities, and
Sure.
they kind of touched on that on the book, was that he was jealous of her, that she's this published author, and she's done all this stuff, and he just is trying to find his place in the world, and he admits that at the end, and he has a beautiful love declaration at the end. So we got 2 love declarations from Colin, one in part 1 and one in part 2. And he's like, if like loving you, like somebody like you is like, I've done pretty well, and I'm going to live a happy life. I don't know exactly what he says, much better and eloquently than how I'm saying it. So all of their scenes were good. I like the way that their story did play out on screen. I just wanted more since it was their season. I felt like it was a little bit like underserved. Like we needed more content from them, less of the side stories.
They're weaving in more of the side stories each season, it seems like, from what you're telling me.
But you would think they'd make sense. Like, for example, Benedict had a threesome, Can I say that on the podcast?
Sure.
With Lady Tilly and another dude. And we were hoping, but I don't think the new showrunner is going to do it, that Benedict will finally get his focus in season 4. But these two characters, they don't, I mean, I could have seen like the one scene with them would have been fine. I didn't need to. It's like, how long did this event take place for Benedict? Like every 5 seconds, it was switching back to that. Like I could have done a little less of that, because at some point it's like, okay, that's way too much. We get it. You know what I mean? And I don't care at all about Lady Tilly. I don't care if I ever see that character again. She does nothing for me. She's boring. And then the Mondriches, like, what was their storyline for? Like, it just felt not like, it felt like there was a lot of like stuff that could have been made the cutting room floor.
Sure.
To make room for your leads. Other things I liked, the Featherington family. I need the sisters and Portia to stay on the show. Something I realized while watching Portia, Penelope's mother, she is Julie Cooper coded, but of yesteryear. Best character growth that I have seen of the characters, strictly speaking, from the show. And just the evolution of all them, and like, I don't know, they start off, they're super annoying, Portia and her sisters, in the early seasons, and then I just came to love them all so much. Like, my favorite scene probably from the entire part 2 was Penelope's sister Philippa, and she's like, release the bugs, but they're butterflies.
I saw that part.
And it's like right after the reveal to kind of break the tension.
Yeah.
And then like you could tell that even like Prudence during the wedding scene was like actually crying happy tears of actual joy, not envy in that point, because she was acting jealous of Penelope a lot, but like that was an actual moment of
my
happiness.
impression of those two from the very limited watching I saw was they're kind of like the evil stepsisters from Cinderella. They're not stepsisters, but they kind of are fulfilling that role.
Yeah,
I feel like.
And somebody totally came for me on Twitter about that when I said, no, Benedict's story is the Cinderella season. And they're like, no, it was not a book reader. They're like, well, Penelope is clearly the Cinderella season. I'm like, no, but Benedict's season really is the Cinderella season. And they totally brought that up as a point against me.
Oh, well, that's not what I'm doing. So just be aware. I'm not arguing with you on the internet. I'm talking to you here in our podcast studio.
Yes. But I could see that, but they're not like terribly cruel, and Penelope wasn't like Cinderella, like Sophie, Benedict's alleged love interest will be. Who knows what they're going to do with him, since this show might as well not be called Bridgerton anymore. But I liked
security.
Another storyline that I did like, and then I'll get into the criticisms before it all went to crap, was I liked getting to see Francesca and John's story, because in her book, when he was wicked, we don't really get much of John. Like, he dies. Spoiler alert. Sorry, guys. He's going to die. And she loved him very much. She's left a widow. And a lot of her journey is the path to second love. She also struggles with infertility. It was a very impactful book for those, 2 reasons, and that it was very different. And so her story is mostly focused on Michael Sterling, who is my favorite. I say Anthony Bridgerton is my favorite Bridgerton male. My favorite lead in the book series, hands down, is Michael Sterling. He is the least toxic of all the men that have ever appeared in the book series. I just pictured him. He's pictured, even there's a scene where Sophie and Kate, Benedict and Antony's wives, are talking about how hot he is. So like, he's supposed to be like I always pictured Theo James, for example, when I read the book, of like
Great.
Who I pictured as Michael Sterling, like just unbelievably gorgeously hot and handsome. But that's it. So you didn't really get to know John, is what I'm getting towards. And I really liked it that we got to see more of John and Francesca. And I'm like, man, this is going to hurt, because Francesca is devastated when John passes away in the book. And it's going to really hurt to have to, now that we're getting to know John on screen, and they're both have more of an introverted type of relationship. And I'm like, I really like how they're doing this story, and that they're showing that not all love has to be crazy like Colin and Penelope and dramatic like Kate and Antony or Daphne and Simon, that sometimes you can have just that calming, quiet love with somebody. And then the show was like, you know what? We want to do some shock value. Pure shock value. Now, I want to start out by saying, I'm like holding up my finger right now because I'm deeply passionate about this. I love a lot of what the show has done in terms of diversity, inclusion. In the Queen Charlotte story, I'm totally blanking on his name right now, but her like what's
The
it
butler?
called? Her what?
Her butler?
Yeah, that type of like a butler person. His I don't know if that's his actual title. His storyline with his romantic partner was King George's butler or whatever you call it. Loved their storyline together. I thought, and I see it, and I have a point here, and I'm like, okay, that was great that they did that. Then I thought maybe like Cressida, for example, like she could have been a character that could have been possibly with a woman. But then I also see people's points. You want to see representation, not just in side characters. People want to see it in their main characters. I get it. I hear you. And I think it could have worked. Not the way they're doing it. We've already had sprinklings since season 1 that Benedict could possibly be into men or possibly be bi. We saw it on screen this season. Eloise. A lot of people don't like Sir Philip. That's probably he's probably my least favorite male in the Bridgerton books, Sir Philip. Even though I pictured Henry Cavill as playing him when I casted him in my head, but whatever. He's probably and like with the way they've been writing Eloise and Benedict for the show, I was like, okay, that'll be a great opportunity for one of those two characters. I do want to start by saying that a lot of book fans, if those are your two favorite books, I totally understand you. I hear you that you want to see your favorite book couple come to life on screen. So I am in no way, shape, form, or fashion, to quote our dear Governor Jim Justice of West Virginia, no way, shape, form, or fashion saying that, haha, it doesn't make sense. You guys, I don't feel bad for you at all if you don't get your book story. But from what we've seen written on the show, Benedict, Sophie ended up being a man instead, that could have worked out. If they have Eloise with a woman or with another man that's not, which I know people want to see representation, but a lot of people liked Eloise and Theo. That's a change I could have been okay with. Really, I honestly thought they were leaning that way with Benedict since season 1. They had all the sprinklings in. Everything was there. And then they decide, we've for years been dreaming about who would play Michael Sterling. They're like, you know what? We're going to take the best male from the series and we're going to erase him. I feel like Michael Sterling is dead. So we have the scene at the end where Francesca and John are at the butterfly ball, and he's like, "Oh, you can meet my cousin," and I'm like, "Yes, yes, yes." Now I had heard a rumor that they were going to do this, and I thought the rumor had been dispelled, and then to find out that what they actually did was true, I cried. I was so devastated that they would erase Michael Sterling like that. So she's like, I'm Michaela Sterling. Give her a better name than Michaela. That's stupid if we're going to do that. And then I thought to myself, I was like, okay, all right, I can make peace with this change if the following hadn't happened. So first off, I thought, all right, Michael Sterling was so perfect in the books that obviously in real life, there are no perfect men like that. So why not cast a woman? I see you. I see that point. My issue with it is Francesca's reaction to the whole thing. Francesca, in the books, was very in love with John. She did not have a wondering eye. She did not know that Michael, the moment he met Francesca, it was like, that was it for him. But he kept it a secret. He buried it down. He was supportive of his cousin in his relationship. There was never cheating, never anything like that. Never any side glances between the two of them. Francesca had no clue of his feelings. She didn't develop feelings till much later. She did really love John. Well, they decided to just crap all over Francesca and John. All over it. And I went ahead and rewatched some scenes. She does make an ick face after their first kiss. She's kind of like, she clearly makes a disappointed face. Then, when they have her meet Michaela, it's not Michaela that's just infatuated instantly upon meeting Francesca. It's Francesca. And people could be like, oh, well, maybe Francesca was just shy, nervous. No, they made us have a whole point of a conversation where Violet, Francesca's mother, is saying when she and Edmund met, she could barely remember what her own name was and she could barely form a sentence. Well, Francesca's like, I'm Francesca Bridgerton, Kilmartin. Francesca was immediately taken with Michaela. So basically, they just dumped on all of her story with John that we got to see. That was sweet. They crapped all over that. They've made it almost and I know I've talked to people in the community, especially the community of like people that are bisexual, and they say one of the things they hate most about when they are represented on TV is infidelity. Sometimes they feel like that is thrust upon characters, and it's true if you watch. And that's how because a lot of people do have like, even people in the lesbian, like gay community, like they sometimes, you notice, they'll have issues with people that are bisexual as well. And that's one of the criticisms that I have seen. Have you heard that before?
I have, yes.
And it just makes Francesca's like, how many days are you married? Like 2 days? And she's giving a wondering eye like instantly. And that's not how that storyline played out. So I could have made a little bit of peace with it because I started to think about it and I was like, okay. Until I noticed that again. And I'm like, no, they're crapping on everything. And I don't know how they're going to address infertility. That was such a huge part of her book that resonated with a lot of women. It just felt like it was done for pure shock value. And at this point, I'm just going to have to separate it. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, as a book fan, it sucks feeling like Michael Sterling is dead. I'm never going to see him on screen. I was very upset about that. I was very depressed about that. I'm happy for people that are getting their representation. I understand it. I get it. You don't want to, you while you're fine with side characters, you want to see a main character. I understand it. I'm right there with you. I wanted Loki to be with, what was his name?
Morbius. Yeah.
I was a huge shipper of them. Again, I stress, I was fully waiting for Benedict to be the one that got the representation story. And I'll say this for the Benedict book fans. Sophie's one of my favorite female leads from the books. Somebody's storyline was going to get altered, but going off of what was presented to me on the show, there was absolutely no buildup that am I to believe like, oh, introverted women must be like bisexual, like, or maybe even like lesbian, like, I don't know. And it just felt like they did that just to get a reaction out of people and to stir some things up. I think it's terrible that the new actress, by delivering her one line, has getting hate already. Don't hate on her. You can be upset about the change. I'm upset about changes. The actress that plays Francesca has apparently had to turn off her comments because people have been sending her hate. It's not their fault. They're doing their jobs. If you want to blame anyone, blame the showrunner. She gave out an interview and she's like, I saw myself a lot in this book, so I decided that'd be the perfect story. That's not what you're supposed to do. I hope they can do a great job, but what the most disappointing part of that is not the gender change. It's just the change to John and Francesca's love, in my opinion. And that's where I have issues with it. And just based on the storytelling we were seeing, they had golden opportunities to still give representation, but follow through with good storytelling. And this just seemed like an attempt for shock value and to get the fan base riled up. And it makes me think it's another reason why they waited for it to be in 2 parts, because a lot of people would have been upset about it. And it sucks to be upset about this and be told you're homophobic if you were upset about it. I can't stand that. I feel like you went through something very similar when one of your favorite books was in a movie. Like, if you were upset about a character change, you were called like racist. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. The Dark Tower movie, which, by the way, the worst thing about the Dark Tower movie, the best thing about the Dark Tower movie was that they cast that character as the main character, even though he wasn't anything like the character. The movie itself was just absolutely awful regardless. Yeah. But yeah, it's tough when you have a book that you love, and some books are very ambivalent about their characters and some books are not. And in that case, it was very not ambivalent who this character is and what they are and what they look like. And you should be able to express your dissatisfaction with those things without just immediately being called racist or homophobic or all of that stuff. But I agree with you. The thing that's harder to get over is changing the character itself. Yeah. Not the I can get past who's playing a character even if it doesn't match what the book said they should look like or what my headcanon said they should look like. But when they go a step further and change the fundamentals of the story, that's when it's like, okay, now you are adapting this from a book and you should be adapting it in a way. Like, you're gonna lose viewers if you continue to.
And I suppose they could backpedal on that and be like, "Oh, she was just nervous." But they put in that part about Violet talking to her about not being able to form sentences for a reason. I went back and watched. She did make a face after the kiss, and it was just really disappointing to me because, like I said, I started to come to terms with it, and I'm like, Michael was too good. He was too good, so we had to cast a woman because no man is really that good. I get it. Fine, bring in Michaela. but it's the part that I had issues with was that. And I think it's very hurtful. Not only do I think it's hurtful, I think it's harmful, and I think it's dangerous to be throwing out accusations that people are homophobic if they were a little disappointed about that. And I do think as book fans, for any of the characters, you're allowed to feel like an attachment to it. So it's time to just put the books to the side, the show to the side. Since then, the showrunner has come out, said some more off the wall things, and I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, it's just, and she was referring to other characters like Benedict and Eloise. And I think you should still stick to like the bones and the stories that resonated with people, but you can change some of that. So I hope they are able to tell a good story, but I'm not going to lie. It was very disappointing, and it really disappoints me more that I think it was done for shock value when they had opportunities that were already within the script, within the stories they were telling, to do a good job and with representation. And I think they fumbled the bag, and I think they made it worse for everyone, because now the fandom is already a little bit toxic, but now you have people fighting, sending actors hate, and they could have avoided that.
Well, at least you have 2 whole years to cool off.
And don't even get me started on that. Why the 2-year wait? I'll never know. At this point, like, people are like, are we going to get Hyacinth and Gregory stories? They're the youngest Bridgerton siblings. I'm like, well, at this glacial pace, they might be in their 60s.
Well, you clearly liked it enough that you've rewatched it. What'd you say, 3 times? And you watched the first part like 4 times?
Yeah, I kind of do my, like, though, you know how sometimes I've done my wacky Lord of the Rings watching where I watch all my favorite scenes?
Yeah.
I've kind of just been watching a lot of the Colin Penelope scenes, and since they had so few, it doesn't take me very long to get through the last 4 episodes. But I definitely think part 2 was better. The carriage scene was still peak for the season.
You mean part 1 was better?
Part 1 was
Yep.
better, yes. I can't even think straight right now.
Okay. Well, we've come to kind of a big deal here for us here on We Watch TV podcast. As many of our longtime listeners may know, The Boys currently holds the title of Best Thing Going. Here probably in late July or August, we're going to redebate that because I think there may be some changes coming. But
I think there already are.
We have begun and we're really in the middle of. We have watched the first 4 episodes of The Boys. They premiered with the first 3 episodes. The 4th episode came out this past week, and we've watched it all.
Is it an 8-episode season?
It is an 8-episode season, so we are halfway through. And all I have to say is just don't get anybody pregnant.
That was fantastic.
That was what reminded me we were watching The Boys.
Yes, instantly. That was from the first episode.
Yeah, that was like the first 5 minutes of the episode.
That was Homelander addressing his son Ryan, and the soup that pops people's heads off that's running for office, and her daughter. They were going to hang out in some back room, and that's what Homelander. And that was where you just both just cackled. I'm gonna spit out my drink. The Boys are back. It's good.
It's good. It's The Boys.
I would say that I am rethinking. This is no criticism on the current season. And again, we're going to have to see how next weekend unfolds with the bear, but I'm really excited for the bear. And I think right now, because The Boys has hit a place where we kind of have the mystery. The mystery's out. We know what they're going for. And it's doing what a lot of shows do. You start to give some of these side characters more of a storyline, and the storylines of the side characters are not all connecting yet. So I'm kind of wondering, like, is this going to fall into place? Like, what's going on? So I'm not saying that the episodes have been bad at all. They've all been great. I've been very entertained by all of them. But I think if I was comparing this season thus far to the previous seasons, this one is probably the weakest for me at this juncture. But that's because the other previous seasons were so good.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I've been very entertained. I do want to know, and I think they will, because they've had side character storylines in previous seasons, and those things have come full circle and connected back in. And I haven't put it together yet where they're going. They seem a little. The story seems a little listless right now in like the main story. I'm not exactly sure. Like, it seems like, Butcher's story is he's trying to get Ryan away from Homelander.
And he's dying.
Because
he took Club V.
Yeah, and the boys as a unit, they're trying to take care of the vice president, who is a soup, who you referred to her, that pops heads.
Yeah.
And the president is even with them on trying to get rid of her in this effort. And Homelander has recruited Sage to come in and help him to basically cause chaos.
Yeah, he wants to supposedly under the guise he says he wants to make the world a better place for Ryan. But I think what's going on with Homelander right now is he's basically taken over Vought. He has all this power, yet he still feels empty, unhappy.
Yep.
He's starting to age, and he's collecting remnants of that aging
gray
process
hairs,
and putting it in a jar.
Gray hairs, not from his head.
In a jar.
In a
which
jar.
A-Train later finds.
And so, I'm still kind of sitting wondering how these stories are all going to slowly find their way back together. Yeah.
Frenchie has a whole side plot so last season it really seemed like Frenchie and Kimiko were going to be like a thing. They're just clearly just good friends. They addressed that like in the first episode. She's like, I love you, but you and me ain't happening, because he had a scene with this guy that's working for Starlight's little foundation.
Yeah.
He has a scene with this guy, and instantly I'm like, wow, these two have insane chemistry. Well, that was intentional. If you have not watched, remember, we are a spoiler podcast. If you have not watched The Boys yet, click off this episode or go to the next chapter marker. This was your warning. Spoiler alert, Frenchie, apparently, he was working with that assassin group. He was an assassin. That's kind of his background. He murdered this guy's whole family. And then in the most recent episode, he confesses, and the one guy is like, if I see you again, I'm going to kill you. I think they're going to hook up again before the end of the season. There's just too much energy there. I have no problem with Frenchie and Kimiko not being together, because I always felt like he more had a crush on her than she him.
Yeah,
she was
I agree.
more grateful that he was helping her. So a lot of the fans I think are kind of mad about that, though. They feel like it came out of left field from stuff I'm seeing.
I don't feel like that at all.
But yeah, whatever.
Listen, there's a lot of fans that watch The Boys that a lot of things have come out of left field for them.
Is this play about us?
Which is really, really weird. But so I don't necessarily take their opinions on some of this stuff with much weight.
The show is too close to things that we see in the real world.
It has become closer and closer every season.
They're really diving into it full bore this season.
Oh, man, that picked up on the mic.
It did, okay.
That's one of our good neighbors, everybody.
And speaking of other bizarre things, so The Deep, we got to talk about how he has the octopus in his bedroom, voiced by Tilda Swinton.
Yeah, of all people.
So it's just...
It's The Boys.
It's The Boys.
Back. The Boys are back.
Movie. I didn't have Will Ferrell showing up on The Boys as my on my bingo card, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, they're spoofing The Blind Side, and they even said, he's like, did I go too Blind Side on this? So Will Ferrell shows up. That was funny.
As Will Ferrell.
So I do like the introduction of Sage.
Yes.
She doesn't like to be called Sister Sage. I think that was what her soup name was when they recruited her. Great character. She's the smartest, supposedly, the smartest person.
Yes.
Not woman on Earth. Person. And her brain, we find out, she can even, take out her brain.
She lobotomizes herself.
And it regenerates.
To relieve the annoyance of having such intelligence, and she basically is dumb for a couple hours, but her brain grows back and she's smart again.
So was she missing a piece of her brain when she was trying to convey how smart she was at one point?
Oh my gosh.
Or is this a fault of the writers? Because I'd be remiss if I didn't point this out. Luke Skywalker is not the chosen one, and he's not referred to as the chosen one, correct? Has he ever been referred to as the chosen one? Have they come right out and said that? Not on a show, because you can't use what you said. Daniel was like, well, they talked about it. First, Daniel was like, no, they just did Luke Skywalker because that's what most people would know. And then I said, okay, well, has he ever been? And then Daniel's like, on the same sentence, turns around and is like, well, on Rebels, I think they called him that. Not everybody watches Rebels. You just made an argument against your own argument. Anakin Skywalker is the chosen one. So she's coming up with a list of things. Like Luke Skywalker, people want to believe in somebody. She was coming up with this when she was telling Homelander that they should make Ryan the new face of Vought. He's the chosen one. He was created. And Anakin Skywalker is the chosen one. And I'm like, for the smartest person on Earth, you'd think she'd know that. But I'm going to let that one slide and blame it on the writers.
Okay, so to keep up with her character, though, let me ask you a question.
Love her character.
So I love her character, too. I think she's the best addition to this new season of the new characters.
Yes.
Is she playing both sides? for something, or is she truly with Homelander?
I think she's playing the long game, because when they first meet, she's kind of sussing out his intelligence level.
Mm-hmm.
And what stuck out to me was she was like, you could be like Julius Caesar. And I'm sitting there like, who would want to be like Julius Caesar? Everybody turned on him in the end. Et tu, Brute. And he's like, I would love to be like Julius Caesar. What happens to Julius Caesar, the leader?
He gets stabbed by 50 guys of his own guys at the end.
So I think that they intentionally had that line in, unless it's the same writer that thought Anakin Skywalker's the chosen one, then you can throw this theory out the window. But I think she's playing the long game.
Okay, I agree. I think at this point I have no reason to believe that otherwise. Plus, like what we found out about her in the last episode, where she's doing the lobotomies to basically like not have to be herself for a little bit. It seems to me to drive the same kind of, she's really not enjoying what she's doing, but she knows she has to do it for some reason. So I would not be surprised if there is a turn later to find out that she's not working with the boys, because I think it's very clear she isn't. I think she's working on her own.
I think she's
double cross. Yeah, she's self-serving. So she's got her own double cross, but she knows how dangerous Homelander is. So
let's talk about Firecracker. I feel like we have seen women like that on the media.
Yes, for sure.
Anything to say about I think the actress is nailing it.
She's doing a great job.
Great job.
It's another one of those characters like Homelander where it would be really difficult to play that character, but she's doing a great job.
Yeah.
Because it's just a really vile, disgusting character. All right, and so we also have Jeffrey Dean Morgan in this season. So now, again, I want to, spoilers, everybody, and this is speculative as well. Is he real?
I'm not sure. I saw a really good TikTok theory that said that Butcher, who is hallucinating his ex-wife, the mother of Ryan.
He is. They have confirmed that to us through the media of the show that he is hallucinating his wife, his dead wife. Yes.
But I have not seen Jeffrey Dean Morgan interact with any of the other characters.
No.
They've been keeping his role in the show very much under wraps.
Yes.
So we know that Butcher's capable of hallucinations. I think they kind of indicated that he has still some soup abilities from taking that drug.
I agree. Especially this last season episode with what happened with the stretchy guy. Yeah,
I do think they debunked it a little bit that Huey might not be hallucinating his mom. That was another theory.
Yeah, I was going to get to that next. So Huey's main story arc of the season is his dad has had some sort of brain aneurysm, and he's in the hospital in a coma.
Like, should be basically dead.
Yes, and his mother, who has up to this point never been around, comes back.
She left when he was like 6 or something?
Is there to help take care of his dad. They'd apparently like kind of not gotten friendly, but they'd been communicating, and he'd given her power of attorney over his medical issues. And so she is there, and so Huey has been struggling with his anger towards his mother and his fear about his father passing away, which seems pretty certain. Everybody's kind of telling him, at some point you got to learn to let it go. And we thought for a little while maybe he was hallucinating her, just like we think Butcher is hallucinating Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character.
She hasn't come right out and talked to anybody else yet, but you could infer that the nurse might have looked at her.
I think so.
And I think her clothes were different.
Well, in the end of the last episode, she did something in the physical world. Yeah. Which is, Huey went through
Unless you could say, you could go off Fight Club on us.
I mean, you could go Fight Club. You could go the Fight Club way. Yes, I guess you could. But Huey went out of his way to get some Compound V. He thought maybe that would be the last.
I keep saying Club V was where they would go to get Compound V.
I think so, yeah.
From season 1, right? Yeah, Compound V.
So Compound V is the thing that makes people superheroes. Yeah. And he thought, if I inject this into Dad, maybe that'll save him.
Even though he knows how this drug works.
Yeah, he decided at the last minute, he decided against it, but his mom seemed to see that he had something, and so she put it in there. The more I think about that scene, the more I go back to maybe she's not real and it's a Fight Club situation. Yeah. Because it really did seem weird.
She does know when she was introduced, like she had been working for Vought or like selling because they
she is supposedly. Vought like somehow connected, yes.
But like Huey had unintentionally been working with Vought when he was on Victoria Newman's campaign.
True.
I don't know how that's going to go. Once again, Huey is lying to Starlight, though. Mm-hmm. He's lied to her about taking the Compound V, which is super annoying. And her storyline is just she's got her supporters against the Firecracker supporters. They really found a way to emotionally break her down by revealing some very personal information. So she's going through it right now. There's a lot of stuff going on.
As with the boys, I think the second half of the season's really going to really
Episode
pick up.
Episode 4, give Anthony Starr Emmy for that performance for Homelander because he was like diabolically good.
Yes, he was. It was excellent. He's always been excellent as Homelander.
Yeah,
so
that particular episode is like bone chilling. Do you think Ryan is going to be saved this season, or do you think he'll go the way of Homelander? I think there's definite hope for Ryan, to be kind.
I think there's hope for it for sure. I think that the end of this season is going to end with Ryan leaving Homelander, and that's going to be the thing that pushes Homelander like
completely
over the edge. And season 5, which has been confirmed as the final season, is going to be the reconciling of a completely loosened from reality Homelander. Like he is, this is going to be the worst he has ever been. He's not going to be in any way reasonable. Is how if I were writing the show, that's how I would do it. Is I would end this season as like, oh my gosh, this guy's about to just destroy the whole world.
We got to talk about Black Noir, who's dead, and they just have an actor in there playing him for outside purposes, and it seems like all of the soups know it and that are in the 7.
Yeah. It's just so funny because they haven't really addressed it.
Yeah.
But so at first we were all
scared to death of Homelander.
Yeah, he walked like Black Noir walks on screen, and both of us look at each other like,
didn't he die?
I thought Homelander killed him last season, and then he starts talking, and we're like,
he talks?
Yeah, and so I just like the way that they approached it in the show is they just called no attention to it whatsoever, except for that actor that's in there keeps talking every now and then, and people are like, shut up, dude, that's not what Black Noir does.
What do you think about A-Train? See, I feel like A-Train's always been the one, and he has kind of been double crossing the 7. I don't think A-Train's going to turn necessarily good. I think A-Train might die. I think he might be offed.
I think A-Train is going to die, but I think that it is going to be in at least some sort of a heroic manner. I think he is going...
He already saved Huey.
He saved Huey. I think he is getting them the boys' stuff and working for them.
But I think Homelander's going to find out.
And I think Homelander's going to find out, but I think he will get his, like... Maybe nobody will even see it, but he will get some sort of redemption from his character. So. But then Homelander is going to, like I said, I think Homelander is going to start going on a rampage into next season, and I think it'll start at the end of this season, and some people might be casualties of that.
There's a couple other things that I have to address before we end our current conversation with the boys. Vought on ice. Okay, just what do you have to say about that?
Completely on brand with this show. I love it.
I just absolutely love it. And then the second thing that I need to talk about is, so Eric Kripke, am I saying his name right?
Yes.
He did Supernatural, Timeless, 2 great shows. He's notorious for using the same actors. So he has the actor that played Chuck from Supernatural, who we found out was God on Supernatural, in the most vile scene I've ever seen on The Boys. Well, one of the most. And I'm like, that was intentional. And then they made a joke in episode 4. They're like, oh, he's probably up there with God or something. And I think that was a wink to the Supernatural fandom. So are we going to bring in Jared Padalecki now? Let's get the band back together.
Get him in there, man. Get him in there for season 5 for something. And are we going to see Soldier Boy this season? Because we have not been teased about it at all. He is still alive. Yeah. He is being captured. I think he is like captured by the CIA. But, like, are we going to see him or not? Because
I hope we do.
I really enjoyed his character, but I wonder if it's kind of a situation where all that stuff gets played out next season as the finale season.
Yeah. So, like, even though I said I'm not sure this is my current best show going, I'm still absolutely loving it. And I'll have to see how The Bear, which I think is its biggest competition, contends next weekend.
Yeah, for me, it's two things. It's two things. I don't... If The Boys ends up losing out as being the best thing going, I don't think it will be, at this point in the season, I don't think it will be because The Boys' quality went down. It'll be because other shows' quality is just through. I mean, we keep talking about The Bear. Let's not forget Severance is in the running as well. So there's lot. There's going to be, it's going to be a whole episode that is just the conversation about the best thing going, nothing else.
Well, speaking of another show, so let's just segue into this. We have Huey, who was in the Hunger Games and killed Rue, and the actress who plays Rue is in The Acolyte. We have now watched episode 4 of The Acolyte. Once again, a Disney Star Wars show, knocking it out of the park for episode 4.
Yeah, this was the best episode of the season by far.
So good. So short, though. Like, the end of it, I was like, okay, now I'm invested in The Acolyte.
And then the credits rolled.
And then roll credits.
So
So you have, like, there's not really much I can even say about it. Like,
I like a few
getting
things,
better and better.
and I want to address, like, everybody who pays attention to Star Wars knows there's a sect of Star Wars fans out there that hate everything.
Yes.
And certainly
they hate everything that's not the OGs.
We talked about the conversation and the controversy from the third episode with the Chosen One prophecy and all that stuff.
Which they never even said the Chosen One. Anakin is still the Chosen One. Sage should know this from the boys. Anakin is the Chosen One.
This episode, they brought in a character that was in the prequels.
Yes.
And specifically, he's a character that...
I call him Conehead Man.
Yeah, specifically, he's a character that was in the prequels that in episode 1 said very much, this couldn't be a Sith, in reference to Darth Maul. Yeah. The Sith have been dead for 1,000 years. And now here he is in this episode of the TV, 100 years before that, investigating a mysterious Force Sith, user who is doing all this stuff. And then you've got the green girl, and I don't remember her name.
I don't know. I call her Green Woman.
Who is not... She seems to be like she's not on the Jedi Council, but she has access to the Jedi Council, and she's very much like, let's not get the Jedi Council involved with this yet.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are irritated with like that with Kumundi's character.
That's his name.
Yeah, knowing any of this information and then making those statements in the prequels.
They never have said the word Sith yet, so you could say that.
I also
you could say, you know what, maybe some writers dropped the ball.
Or it could be a cover-up. I mean, let's be honest.
It could be a cover-up too.
You watch the prequels, and the Jedi were not they weren't the bad guys, but they weren't necessarily like the perfect. They messed up too.
Is explaining diving into that a little bit.
Yeah, and I like that.
And I like that as well. Like, they were never perfect. That was the whole point of it. That, like, they played a role in Anakin going bad just as much as anyone else. They were never perfect. I think it could go different ways. I think it could have been a writer oversight. That being said, they went, but of course this was by the work of Dave Filoni, right? Where they went over hoops to make sure that Anakin never met General Grievous in the Clone Wars because of the line he said in Revenge of the Sith. I just think that's great.
I think
that they never had scenes together in the Clone Wars.
I think they pulled that specific character from the prequels here specifically because he said that line to pull on that string of the corruption and the stuff that's starting to seep its way into the Jedi.
That's why I was saying it could be writing, but I don't think it's going to be writing. My next point was going to be, I think that we haven't heard them exactly say the word Sith yet.
No.
And there could be a variety of reasons that we'll have explained to us. And if we don't have explained to us, then hey, maybe it wasn't writing.
The number one reason could be, at the very end of this 4th episode that we watched, the apprentice, we believe this to be the Sith apprentice.
Yes.
Revealed himself to the Jedi, and there's going to be a fight. I assume we're going to see the rest of that fight in the next episode, or maybe we won't. But, if none of those Jedi survive, they'll never know there was a Sith involved.
Exactly.
They're not going to kill the main soul, the main Jedi character.
Do we think that Maya's friend is actually not a friend?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, same. I will be a little disappointed if they don't go that way.
Yeah.
That he's
explain
this to the people.
Maya, the twin that's working for the dark side,
yes,
has a guy who is her helper in some manner. He also works for the dark side.
He's her friend,
guy,
supposedly,
and he's guiding her. Well, I'm sorry. There's just been
too many.
There's been too many hints that he is at least the apprentice.
What is the dark side? Manipulation.
Yes, and then so she tells him at the end of that episode, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to go surrender myself to the Wookiee Jedi, and I'm going to be out. And she traps him in a tree trap and walks off. Mm-hmm. And then we don't see him again, but with this, suddenly this Sith shows up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's totally him.
But that was definitely the best part of the episode at the very end. And
for sure.
It's getting so good. As for the Conehead Man from the prequels, I'm a known prequel lover. I don't care too much about that. If it ends up being bad storytelling and they forgot something, whatever, it wouldn't be the first time. That being said, I actually hope that it's intentional.
Me too.
I want them to circle back to be a reason of why he said that, and I want them to pull it together. What about you?
I think that would be much more interesting. And again, I want to point out, the Jedi are not perfect. It's been pointed out in the sequels. Or in
Yes.
the prequels, the sequels did too. I know most, like, you don't want to have a fight, like, but in the prequels, which a lot of the people I've seen hating on this show are fans of, the Jedi are not perfect in the prequels.
No, not even
And
close.
there is a reason that Darth Sidious is able to take control of the Senate and eventually become the Emperor the way he did. And part of that is because the Jedi were just so corrupt at that point and acting as the police for the Republic. And it's just, I think that is an interesting way to start weaving that story and explaining it a little bit better.
So if her friend is in fact the Sith,
Mm-hmm.
could he be Darth Plagueis the Wise? Because
we don't know,
he's
because
cute.
nothing. The only things we know about Plagueis.
He's cute, but he's a murderer.
He's
cute though.
The only canon things we know about Darth Plagueis is what Palpatine said in Episode 3 during the opera scene. There was a book written that talks about it,
it's not
but it's
canon.
not canon, so we don't really know. And it would, if he's a human, he appears human. If he is, if that is in fact him, he would be very old by the time the prequels come along. And so I think he's the Sith apprentice, and I bet he might bite it, and a stinger to the end of the season could be the new apprentice that comes along, and that could be Plagueis.
He was very interested in Osha, like, oh, you're just like her.
Oh, I think he's going to make a play. I think he's going to drop Maya and go for Osha now. I absolutely think that's where this season is going.
And I'm excited to see more.
Because she's quit on him.
Yeah.
And so now he's going to make a play for the other one. And that's the interesting thing of the duality of these two characters is it's the flip happening here in the middle of the season where Maya now maybe gets with Soul and says, we got to try and save my sister. Whereas before they were doing it the opposite direction.
Which sister do you prefer? I like Maya better.
I like Maya better.
Okay. And in other news, we have still been continuing to watch Suits. We are still on season 7, but because we've had so much to talk about this episode, we're going to kind of table that, and we'll talk about Suits in a future episode.
Mike Ross still sucks.
But we both did. I do have to say this about Suits.
Oh, gosh.
We had a little conversation before dinner, and we're like, let's be upfront and honest. I'm like, who on Suits would you want to represent you? And we both at the same time said Mike Ross.
Yeah, because you want the worst person possible to be your lawyer.
Anyway.
Sorry, lawyer listeners.
I have talked to one of my lawyer friends who is a good person, who has also watched Suits, and she is down to come on for a guest episode in the future. Hopefully we can make that happen where she can kind of tell us, what's a farce, what's not.
Most of it's probably a farce.
I think that would probably be pretty entertaining. We are still into our New Girl rewatch. It's kind of been put on the back burner because we all have all this new content. So if you are tuning in, wondering when we're going to talk more New Girl, patience. Be patient. Just like you won't have to wait 2 years like you do for new shows on Netflix. Maybe a couple months.
Now that most of the shows are out and their weekly release, obviously there will be nights of the week where we don't have a major show to watch, so we'll be getting back to it.
And if the universe could just leave us alone and give us some peace and not have gnats on our faces, hopefully we won't have to skip a week.
That'd be good. So
that would be ideal.
Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of We Watch TV, a podcast about the TV shows we watch. You can find more from Hope and Daniel on Instagram at We Watch TV Podcast. Drop us a line if you like the show, have a question, or a recommendation. You can find Hope on Twitter at Lil Runner and Daniel on Twitter at The Real Hobo Dan. Music for today's podcast was provided by Your Tunes from Pixabay. Artwork was created using the AI program Midjourney with prompts written by Daniel.